Snow slammed against the windshield like tiny glass needles, blurring the already invisible path ahead. Ethan Cole gripped the controls of the research crawler tighter, jaw clenched. The Arctic storm had come out of nowhere, and communications with base camp were dead. He cursed under his breath as the crawler shuddered, groaned, and then died completely with a mechanical wheeze. Lights flickered once and vanished, leaving only the howling wind and thick silence. He exhaled slowly. Great, stranded, perfect. Bundling up in his thermal gear, Ethan pushed the door open and stepped into the storm. Ice instantly bit into his face. He squinted through the whiteout, hoping to spot shelter or even a ridge to take cover under. That's when he saw her. Barely. A shadow collapsed in the snow about 30 feet away. Not a polar researcher. Not even human. She was tall, draped in a skin-tight suit that shimmered faintly even under the blizzard's wrath. Silvery blue skin peeked through a crack in her helmet, and faint pulses of light blinked along the seams of her clothing. Ethan's heart hammered as he knelt beside her, checking for signs of life. Her eyes flickered open, pupils adjusting unnaturally fast. She said something he didn't understand, weak and slurred. Then they closed again. Whatever she was freezing to death. Okay, alien or not, I'm not letting you die out here. He dragged her back to the crawler with effort. She was heavier than she looked. Inside, he wrapped both of them in what little thermal material he had, then engaged the emergency heat cell, only to see it blink red, nearly drained. He groaned. Of course. When she awoke again, her voice was clearer, but the words still, foreign. She sat up with surprising strength, then winced and clutched her side. Her gaze locked on his, fierce and sharp. I'm not going to hurt you, Ethan said calmly, raising his hands. I'm Ethan, human. You crash-landed, right. In my snowstorm, apparently. She tilted her head. Then slowly, deliberately, she touched a glowing disc near her collar. Her voice, now strangely fluent, echoed through a translator. I am Kayla of Even. My transport was damaged. I require thermal stabilization. Ethan blinked. Right. You and me both. She looked around the cramped space, then at him. Your heat system is insufficient. My species relies on proximity to maintain core temperature. He gave a short, nervous laugh. Are you saying we need to, share heat? Kayla stared. Yes, preferably now. You are already trembling. Wasn't going to argue. His fingers were numb. They adjusted the thermal wrap, and before he knew it, they were pressed shoulder to shoulder beneath the only working heat source. Silence stretched between them. Ethan tried to ignore how her skin was warm against his, how her breath didn't. Fog like his did. He peeked sideways. Her eyes were closed, expression calm but oddly serene. You don't seem very panicked for someone stranded on a frozen planet, he muttered. I've survived worse. She opened her eyes again. Your world is cold, but not cruel. He raised a brow. That's a poetic way of putting it. You radiate confusion. Is close contact not acceptable here? He gave an awkward cough. I mean, it's not unacceptable, it's just complicated. She studied him, as if scanning his entire history. Humans are strange. Ethan chuckled despite the cold. I have no idea. They sat quietly, the storm outside like a living monster. Her head eventually tilted against his shoulder, and he tensed instinctively, but didn't move away. After a moment, she murmured, You smell like tree fire and hesitation. Yeah, that's probably fear sweat and burnt coffee. A small smile touched her lips. It was the first expression she showed that wasn't calculation or wariness. For the first time, Ethan didn't feel so alone in the storm. Ethan stirred awake to the soft hum of electronics. The storm hadn't passed. Snow pelted the windows in chaotic rhythm, a constant reminder they were trapped. His shoulder ached. Kayla still leaned against him, breathing steadily. Her presence, warm and strangely calming, felt less alien now. She shifted, opening her eyes, then abruptly sat upright. Her body tensed, eyes scanning the dim cabin, as if expecting a threat. "You're still here," she said, voice low. That strange translator still mirroring perfect English. "Didn't plan on abandoning you in a snow coffin," Ethan replied with a half-smile. Her eyes narrowed. "Sarcasm. You use it when frightened." "That's surprisingly accurate." Kayla stood and moved stiffly, her joints clearly strained. The suit she wore began to glow faintly as she adjusted settings on her wrist. Ethan watched, fascinated. Tiny floating glyphs appeared, vanishing as she swiped them away. "You doing okay?" he asked. "My core systems are stabilizing. Temperature remains a concern. Nutritional reserves are low. Your planet is inefficient." He grinned. "Yeah, Earth can be a bit of a jerk." Kayla stared at him. "Your idioms are inefficient too." He chuckled and reached for the emergency rations, tossing her a protein bar. "Delicious synthetic cardboard. Enjoy." She studied the packaging like it was alien tech, then took a bite without hesitation. Her expression twisted into confusion. "Is this a punishment?" "Just breakfast," he said, laughing. Despite the situation, Ethan found it oddly comforting to joke around. Something about her literal reactions made everything else feel less terrifying. Kayla moved toward the wall panel and examined the dead console. "This structure cannot withstand another freeze cycle. Internal power has dropped below sustaining threshold." "Yeah, we've got maybe 12 hours of heat left. Then it's back to cuddling for survival." She turned to him, face serious. "Would you prefer a separation arrangement?" Ethan blinked. "What?" "No, I didn't mean it like—" "Never mind." She tilted her head again. "You display signs of mild embarrassment. Is physical closeness a mating ritual?" He nearly choked on his protein bar. "Not always. Sometimes it's just warmth, or comfort, or desperation." Kayla considered that. "Interesting. Uneven. Intentional touch indicates mutual trust. It is rarely casual." Ethan glanced away, unsure how to respond. The idea that she'd willingly leaned into him meant more than he'd realized. Suddenly, a loud creak echoed from the roof. Snow piling up. The structure groaned again. Ethan stood quickly. "That doesn't sound promising." Kayla touched her wrist device, analyzing something only she could see. "Mass accumulation detected. Structural failure possible within the next cycle. So we dig out or freeze. Awesome choices." She moved to the back panel and examined a small metal hatch. "Your crawler contains a compartment beneath the floor?" "Yeah, emergency supply cache." Kayla opened the panel and descended halfway before calling back. "Come, we'll reroute heat to this chamber. Smaller space, higher retention." "Great. We're upgrading from a freezing tin can to a slightly smaller freezing tin can." As they climbed inside the cramped compartment, Ethan realized it was barely large enough for one person, let alone two. She adjusted some cables, drawing residual power from her suit into the embedded coils. A faint hum signaled success. "Well," he muttered, "guess this is home now." Kayla lay on one side, motioning for him to join her. "Conserve space, share thermal output." He hesitated before sliding next to her. Their limbs bumped, uncomfortably close. Her voice softened. "You tremble more now." "Maybe because I'm laying in a box with an alien woman who reads my emotional state, like a scanner." "You are unsettled, but not displeased." He laughed nervously. "You're terrifyingly perceptive." They lay still, the silence only broken by distant groans of snow pressing above. After a while, her voice came softly. "Do you trust me now?" He turned his head. "I think so. Yeah. I trusted you first." "Is that what lying unconscious in a storm counts as?" "No. Choosing not to kill you when I woke up." "Ethan, blinked. Noted. Deeply appreciated. A faint smile touched her lips again. This time it lingered. "I have reviewed your language while you slept," she whispered. "I understand 80%. "Oh? What's the other 20? She leaned closer, her breath warm against his cheek. "Flirtation." Ethan swallowed, pulse quickening. "I could help you with that part." Kayla's eyes gleamed in the dim light. "Good. Begin." Time passed strangely inside the narrow compartment. Without sunlight or clocks, it became difficult to tell if minutes or hours had slipped away. The steady hum of rerouted energy and the muted pressure of snow above them created a strange stillness, like being buried in soft cement. Ethan shifted slightly, trying to ease the numbness in his legs without disturbing Kayla. She lay beside him, eyes open, watching the ceiling like it held answers he couldn't see. "Are you still cold?" he asked, voice low. "My body maintains optimal temperature now," she replied, not turning. "Lucky you. I'm about 10 minutes from frostbite of the soul." She finally looked at him. "Your humor increases when anxious. I guess that's how I survive things, laugh or lose it." Kayla studied him for a long moment. "Do you fear death, Ethan Cole?" He hesitated. "I think everyone does, but I'm more afraid of dying without mattering." "You matter." That came too quickly, too simply. Ethan blinked, thrown off. "You barely know me." "I was trained to observe and assess character quickly. In emergency scenarios, we identify those who act with selflessness. You brought me inside when it was safer to leave me. I didn't think about it. I just reacted." Kayla nodded. "Exactly." They fell into silence again. Outside, the wind had lessened, but inside the crawler, pressure creaks still, whispered above their heads. He noticed a faded scar on Kayla's neck, peeking from beneath the suit. Before he could stop himself, he asked, "That from this crash?" She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers brushed the edge of it. "No. That was from a different mission. A failure." Ethan waited. "I was part of a diplomatic unit sent to a hostile moon. We offered peace. They responded with fire." Her voice remained steady, but the air thickened. "Only 2 of us survived. The other was captured. I'm sorry." She didn't acknowledge the sympathy. Instead, she met his gaze. "Would you risk your life for someone you barely knew?" Ethan gave a faint laugh. "Apparently, I already have." Kayla leaned her head back again, blinking slowly. "Humans confuse logic with feeling. It's inefficient, but strangely admirable." "You really like calling us inefficient?" "You're not wrong," she said, "but you're consistent in your chaos." There was a sudden flicker above them, an emergency light flashing weakly. Then a sharp beep from Kayla's wrist device. She checked the display, frowning. "What's that?" She didn't look up. "A proximity alert. Motion detected above. Not natural." Ethan sat upright, heart jolting. "You mean someone's out there?" Kayla's expression hardened. "Or something." He scrambled to the upper hatch and cracked it open just a hair. Snow filtered in, but through the sliver he saw vague shadows moving near the ridge. Not human, too tall. Gliding shapes like walking silver. "They're scanning," Kayla said. "Looking for me." "Friends of yours?" "No. Opposite." Ethan ducked back down, slamming the hatch. "How do they know you're here?" My ship emitted a distress pulse on impact. It was automatic. Others would have picked it up. Some may have traced it. And they're not here for a rescue mission. "I take it?" Kayla didn't answer. Instead, she activated a section of her suit near the chest plate, revealing a small compartment containing a dull metallic shard the size of a coin. It pulsed weakly. "This is a data core. It contains records of what happened to my crew. Evidence of the betrayal, so they want to silence you. They don't care if I freeze, they want this." Ethan reached out, hesitating before placing his hand over hers. Then we can't let them have it. Kayla studied their hands, then slowly closed her fingers around the shard. If they break into the crawler, they will kill you. I'm not leaving you here. I am trained to endure interrogation. You are not. Well, maybe I'm just incredibly stubborn. For the first time, she laughed, a small, genuine sound, not translated, not processed. He grinned. Was that an emotion? She rolled her eyes. Brief lapse in control. Don't expect it again. They prepared quietly. Kayla adjusted her suit's defense modes. Ethan checked the small emergency flare pistol he'd forgotten about. It wasn't much, but it was something. As she sealed the shard into a new compartment, Kayla paused. If something happens, she said carefully, you should know your presence in this moment matters. Ethan's voice softened. So does yours. Their eyes met, neither one pulling away. The air felt thicker. He leaned slightly closer. Kayla didn't stop him, just as the warmth between them grew almost tangible. Footsteps crunched. Above. Everything fell still. Snow shifted above the crawler. Heavy footfalls echoed like slow drum beats across the fragile roof. Ethan barely breathed, pressed flat against the cold wall, fingers gripping the flare gun too tightly. Kayla remained still, her eyes narrowed, scanning data only she could see through her interface. A faint pulse of violet light blinked near her temple, synced to whatever alien system she was tapping into. Ethan watched her, heart thudding, unsure. What scared him more? The hostile visitors outside, or what Kayla might become if cornered? He whispered, barely audible. Can they see us? Not yet, she replied quietly. They're tracking residual energy signatures, the snow dulls. The readings, but that advantage will fade. He nodded, trying not to let panic take over. How many? 3. Possibly 4. Their body heat is irregular, likely using cloaking dampeners. Great. Invisible, angry aliens hunting us in a buried tin can. Kayla didn't answer. She pulled a thin, silvery blade from a hidden panel near her hip, extending it with a soft hiss. The weapon shimmered like liquid metal, shifting slightly in her grip. Ethan blinked. When were you going to mention the sword? When I needed it. The roof groaned louder. A muffled thud followed, sharper, heavier. They know we're here, Ethan muttered. Kayla nodded once. They're attempting to breach. He looked around, desperation creeping into his voice. We can't hold them off in here. This thing's a coffin if they break through. She pointed to the back wall. There's an exhaust shaft. Narrow, vertical, but it connects to the surface. I thought that was sealed. Only from the outside. I can override it. Then what are we waiting for? I will climb first. If I signal, you follow. No way. We go together. Kayla met his eyes. If I fail, they'll be watching. If you're with me, you'll be captured too. We double our odds by splitting. He hated it. But she was right. She moved quickly, opening the hidden panel, exposing a dark tunnel barely wide enough for a person. Without hesitation, she slid inside, gripping the icy rungs with practiced motion. Before disappearing, she glanced back. Stay. Quiet. Move fast. Then she was gone. Ethan counted the seconds, each one slower than the last. Every creak above made him flinch. His breath fogged in the freezing air. A low vibration started to pulse through the crawler's floor, something drilling, not mechanical, but alive. Suddenly, Kayla's voice crackled through a tiny speaker on the wall. Go! Now! He didn't think. He grabbed the data shard she had left behind and dove into the shaft, the cold metal burning his hands as he climbed. Above, light filtered in faintly through cracked ice. He emerged into a shallow snowbank, blinking against the white glare. Kayla stood several feet away, motionless, crouched low behind a fallen tree. She motioned for silence. Ethan slid beside her. Did they follow? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she pointed toward a ridge. The figures were clearer now, tall, silver-skinned, with elongated limbs and armor that shimmered like mirrors. Their faces were covered by dark, expressionless masks. One of them knelt beside the crawler, scanning it with a floating orb that flickered with blue light. "They're searching for the core," Kayla whispered. Ethan clenched the shard tighter in his palm. "We still have it." "They don't know that yet. We can use that." He glanced at her. "What's the plan?" Kayla narrowed her eyes. "We split. I draw them away. You run south. There's a radio station marked on your map. Send the data from there." "No, not splitting again. You must. I'm not leaving you with those things." Her voice softened, barely audible over the wind. "You have to. That evidence needs to reach someone who can stop them. You're not just helping me anymore. You're protecting truth." Ethan stared at her. "What happens if they catch you?" She hesitated. "Then I fight until I can't." He grabbed her wrist, pulling her slightly closer. "Don't say it like that's acceptable." She looked at him then, not as a soldier or a visitor from another world, but as someone who finally saw him beyond his species. Her hand rose slowly, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. "You've been kind when you didn't have to. B, I won't forget it. I'm not letting you go alone." Kayla smiled faintly. "You're stubborn. You said that already. This time it's not criticism." A blast shook the air. The crawler's hatch exploded upward, torn apart. The silver figures turned instantly, scanning outward. One of them tilted its head, as if sniffing the wind. Kayla shoved Ethan back, standing. "They've found our scent trail. I can still lead them off. It's now or never." He looked at her, chest tight. "If I don't see you again, you will." "How can you be sure?" "Because you still have my data core, and because I haven't finished learning your language." Ethan smiled bitterly. "You already know all the important parts." Kayla turned without another word, leaping over the snow and sprinting into the trees. Immediately, two of the masked figures followed, vanishing behind the white haze. Ethan stared after her, heart pounding. Then he ran south. Ethan stumbled over a root, landing hard on frozen ground, breath ragged from the uphill sprint. Trees blurred past him, their skeletal branches clawing at his jacket. His fingers ached from gripping the data shard, but he didn't let go. Every few steps, he checked the coordinates Kayla had transferred to his watch. The radio station was real, tucked deep into the forest's ridge. If he reached it, if the transmitter still worked, the truth would leave this mountain. That was the only thing keeping his legs moving. Behind him, the sharp whine of alien propulsion grew louder. He didn't dare turn around. Snow began to fall again, thin and fast, carried by an icy wind that bit through his clothes. His lungs burned. His boots slipped on ice patches hidden beneath leaves. Still, he kept going. Up ahead, a structure appeared, squat and covered in frost. The old radio tower loomed beside it, skeletal and rusting, but intact. Ethan didn't wait. He pushed through the half-collapsed door, scanning the room. A console sat at the far end, dead screens coated in dust. He yanked the cover off, revealing tangled cables and a cracked power core. "Come on," he muttered, digging into the toolkit Kayla had given him. He connected the shard, fingers shaking, tapping commands into a foreign interface she had installed. Her voice guided him in memory, sharp and calm. The console flickered. A dull hum rose. Lights blinked to life, one after the other. Transmission. Ready. He uploaded the data, watching the bar crawl forward. 50%, 65, 90. Then he heard footsteps, slow, measured, inevitable. He turned as the door opened. One of the silver figures stepped inside. Alone, its mirrored helmet, tilted slightly, examining him. Ethan raised the flare pistol. "I wouldn't." The figure didn't respond. It stepped closer. Ethan fired. The flare exploded in the narrow space, blindingly bright. The creature staggered, disoriented. He grabbed a metal rod and swung wildly, striking its shoulder. Sparks flew. The alien spun, knocking him across the room with a sweep of its arm. Pain flared in Ethan's ribs. He gasped, trying to crawl away. The data shard beeped. Upload complete. The figure noticed. It lunged toward the console. Ethan tackled it, teeth clenched, dragging it back. They grappled in the cold dirt, the creature's strength overwhelming. Its hand wrapped around his throat, a flash of silver moved behind it. Kayla. She launched into the fight, slamming her blade into the creature's side. It shrieked, voice mechanical and grating, before collapsing in a heap. Ethan coughed, breath returning in painful bursts. You came back. Kayla helped him up, her face unreadable. You finished the upload? Just barely. Outside, more footsteps echoed. They'll come in force now, she said. Ethan looked around. Then we run. No, they'll follow forever if we just flee. Then what? She reached into her suit, pulling a glowing disc. This beacon activates a localized black hole. It will consume this area and anything within a kilometer. That's suicide. Kayla looked him in the eye. Only if we stay. He hesitated. You planned this? I prepared for it. How do we get out in time? She tapped her wrist. There's a ship hidden near the crater west of here. We can make it, but only if we leave now. Ethan didn't ask questions. He grabbed the shard from the console, even though it was now redundant, and followed her into the woods again. The wind howled louder. Lights flashed behind them. The aliens had regrouped. They ran without speaking, feet pounding frozen soil, heartbeats louder than footsteps. Trees flew past in streaks. The beacon behind them began to glow brighter, its hum like thunder beneath the ground. The crater appeared just ahead, a hollow carved by Kayla's escape pod, half covered in snow. Inside, it, half buried, was her backup vessel. Ethan stared. You never mentioned this. You never asked if I had a plan B. She activated the entrance with a flick of her hand. The ramp lowered, steam hissing around them. They dove inside as blaster fire tore through the treetops behind them. Kayla sealed the hatch. Brace. Yourself. The ship ignited, roaring to life. Beneath them, the beacon's pulse became deafening. Then it collapsed inward, swallowing the clearing in a blinding vortex of silence and light. Ethan clung to the wall as the ship rose through trees and wind, soaring past clouds and chaos, higher than he'd ever been. The sky bent around them. Stars appeared like scattered fireflies. Only then did he exhale. Kayla sat beside him in the cockpit, gaze fixed on the stars. He turned to her. What now? She didn't answer right away. The evidence will spread. My people will know the truth, and those who betrayed us will be hunted. And us? She looked at him, slower this time. You saved a stranger, risked everything. So did you. I wasn't supposed to care. That wasn't the mission. Ethan smiled tiredly. Guess we're both off script now. Kayla leaned back in her seat, head tilted slightly toward him. Perhaps we write our own mission from here. Outside, the stars spun silently as their ship disappeared into the night. Two fugitives from different worlds, sharing the same impossible path.